Hey there, we're Shannon and Jerry Arner, your hosts of the Arner Adventures podcast.
We're a minimalist couple driven by intentional living and adventure.
Burned out from the 24/7 grind of running our business, we traded the hustle and the bustle for something more meaningful.
We parted ways with most of our belongings and moved to the coast.
Listen along as we chat about life's challenges, share inspiring stories of those who have taken big leaps to live a life outside of the norm,
and help you live with more intention and less physical and mental clutter.
Each episode is a step toward doing and being just a little bit better for ourselves and the world around us.
Life's an adventure after all. Join us for the ride.
It's the Arner Adventures podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Shannon. We are back for episode 145 of the Arner Adventures podcast. We're doing something a little bit different this week. We thought that we would replay where we were guests on Sarah Horgan's podcast. That podcast is called Simple and Intentional. We had Sarah on our podcast last year. We were also a guest on hers. And at about the time it was released, our sweet Betty White passed away. And we just feel like we hadn't really told enough people about this episode and gotten it out there. And since we get a lot of questions about our lifestyle, how we got to where we are, we always say, okay, we'll go back and listen to episode 1, but this is being interviewed about that journey. And Sarah is such a wonderful person, wonderful conversationalist. She also has a journey of how she got to where she is with her lifestyle, but it was just so wonderful to have a conversation with someone who is interested in living more intentionally. That's what she's all about. So we hope that you enjoy this conversation, and please give Sarah's podcast a listen and a shout out. We're going to link her podcast down in the show notes so you can go over there and listen to lots of her episodes that are so beneficial, so helpful. And I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello, and welcome back to the Simple and Intentional podcast. Have you ever dreamed of creating drastic change in your life, moving somewhere totally different, or breaking free from where you are now? Well, this week, I'm excited to welcome Shannon and Jerry Arner of Arner Adventures, who did just that. Shannon and Jerry's journey has not been without its hurdles. After experiencing severe burnout, they realized the significance of addressing the issue and taking proactive steps to prevent it. They made a huge lifestyle change, sold their house, most of their belongings, downsized, and moved to the coast. Then they started a blog, Arner Adventures, to journal about their challenges that they had faced and how their new lifestyle was enabling them to live life to the fullest, rather than simply having life happen to them. This personal experience has given them valuable insights into the causes and consequences of burnout and mental wellness, and it has fueled their passion for guiding others on a path towards balance and fulfillment. They live each day as an adventure and hope to inspire others to do the same. And I was lucky enough to chat with Shannon and Jerry on their podcast not so long ago, and I loved our conversation so much that I knew I needed to have them on here. Both of you have such a kind energy, and you're a big inspiration to anyone wanting to create change in their lives. So welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Chills when you said that. That's really nice. No, we loved our conversation so much, and so it's an honor to be on your podcast and to have conversation again. We love it.
Mm-hmm. I know, isn't that that's the whole reason to do this?
Yes. Yeah.
So first, I'm wondering if you could share your story just in a little more detail for listeners, like what led you to make such a drastic change in your lives?
Yeah. Do you want to start or me?
You start.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to start with, and to make it a long story very short, is that, or very long story short, is that we were business owners. We owned a business in the pet industry for a number of years. There's all these studies now, hindsight is 2020, that shows how much burnout there is in the pet care industry.
Oh.
Where we've learned a lot since then, but we had kind of like a health and hospice business for pets, because we had some experience in the vet tech world. But anyway, it was very needed. We grew very fast. It was wonderful on paper.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, there was just so much compassion fatigue and just so much empathy. And we, pets are sick and then they pass away. And it was just a really great business and needed, but it was really weighing on us. So in a number of years, again, we grew really big. We started employing people. It grew. It's like all these growing pains, but then we got into it because we really loved pets and that industry, but we didn't know anything about running a business. And because it grew and we kept hiring, and then payroll taxes and all these things that happen with all of it that we just weren't ready for. But anyway, we were never taking vacations, we were never taking time for ourselves. And one day we were just like, let's just get away. Like, our staff is in place. Let's go to the beach near where we live now. And we were sitting on the like where the waves come in.
Yeah, not far from here.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
the surf.
Hmm.
And we were just lamenting about how tired we were, and there has to be a better way. And keep in mind, we were living in a house where we just kept buying stuff and filling it. We weren't enjoying it. I don't know why we kept buying stuff. We weren't able to even be there. But we just felt like it was some way to pacify ourselves, I guess. I mean, looking back now, there's so many issues we could see that, as well we were doing things. But we were sitting in the surf, and I just said to Jared, I can't do this anymore. Like, I cannot do this anymore. We had also suffered some recent loss, and we were just not able to heal. We just couldn't heal. We were burned out, completely burned out. And the way I describe it is the waves were coming, and it was starting to kind of pull us where we were going to have to like stand up. And I knew something was really wrong when I just didn't care. Like, if it took us out, I just didn't care because I couldn't go back to the way that things were. And we sort of made a decision, like, wouldn't it be really great if we got rid of everything? Like, because the things don't matter. I mean, this is literally how it went down. And right? I mean, we had the conversation. We were like, let's just get rid of everything. It's just us and Betty. Betty's our dog, and let's just sell everything. And literally in the span of just a couple of weeks, we came back. We met with a business broker because we would have just given the business away at that point. We met with a real estate agent, put our house on the market. It sold in a day. It was all cash. It was like, okay, all these things are meant to happen.
Yeah.
And we literally sold everything. It was like we got on Facebook Marketplace, we got on I can't remember, Let Go or something, and we were just selling everything we had because we were like, let's just do everything to get the weight off of us. I mean, literally, that's what happened. It sounds crazy when you say it, but that's what happened. And when we moved here to the coast, we rented a 500 square foot tiny little place, and it was us and Betty, and we began our healing process, which we call Arner Adventures.
Yeah.
It was a big adventure.
Yeah, and you got to remember too the nature of this business. And I mean, I know being a business owner is 24/7, but you're not always dealing with your clientele around the clock, which you are in this because they're out of town, you're taking care of their pets, so you're basically dealing with your clientele around the clock,
24/7.
So that's another aspect of that made it all come crashing down.
Yeah, there was never time to recover. There was never time to
No.
rest. But we found plenty of time somehow to keep ordering stuff that was just coming to the house and filling it. And, it's like we're filling a hole.
Yeah. It makes sense. Yeah. It
Yeah.
totally makes sense. Because I feel like anybody that I've ever talked to about stuff, like myself included, it's always like a symptom of something, and even if you like can't put your finger on it right at the time, like you said, in retrospect, you can usually find like, oh yeah, I was feeling really stressed, and it's like that dopamine hit or whatever you're like seeking.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it makes sense. It's like, and also I feel like there's like I don't know, like an element of productivity to buying that I felt myself, and I've found this with other people that I've spoken to, where like you feel like you're getting something done when you like buy something, like check it off the list. And so I also feel like it's like a dopamine hit in a different way. I don't know, like
Totally.
Yeah.
I feel like you're able to like live your life. It's like, well, at least I'm getting this task done or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and also talking about just things, and we also talk about it being mental clutter, because we were saying yes to everything when it came to the business. So if there was an event you want to sponsor, yes. Can you help with this chamber event? Yes. Because we were like, every time we're involved in something, you're getting all this praise and your
Mhm.
business is getting praise. And so
Mhm.
you feel like almost it's an addiction to just keep it up because your hard work and working 24/7 is what's getting you recognized.
Yeah.
It's not sitting on the back, the back row and not doing anything. I mean, we were winning awards
Yeah.
for our business. And meanwhile, we're at home suffering. I mean, burned out. So it's interesting the things that we as a society praise
Yeah.
and award.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
easier to
it
start recognizing yourself for what you do and just instead of who you are,
Hmm.
Yeah.
yeah, I think so many people can probably identify with that because I think it actually takes work to recognize yourself for who you are, and some of us don't even know who we are because, maybe we've been working so hard our whole lives or whatever. And, we get that outward praise for what we're doing, but um, we're not even sure if it's like in alignment with what we actually like doing or like obviously you guys love animals and you love taking care of them, but do you love running a business like that as well? Like, do you have the capacity for that at the same
That's
time?
right.
That's like, I mean, pets are like children, like you can't turn it off. You always have to be available to help them because they, and that's hard.
Yeah, I mean, Betty's right here. She just came to my side. It's like she knows what you were going to talk about. She just
Mhm.
nuzzled me for a rub. I'm like, yeah, she needs me. It's not
Mhm.
like I can just say no, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
They need us and they depend on us. So
yeah. I really found that I don't know if I told you guys last time we talked, but that I had rescued a dog when I had
yeah.
cancer. Yeah,
Hmm.
and then he ended up getting a brain tumor and he was sick. And I remember that like it was so hard to be out of the house and it was so hard to be away from him because you knew like I felt all the time like he needed me to be with him. And so it was really hard, which is actually why I haven't gotten another pet because I just think at this point in my life I know the bandwidth for it. Like I have my daughter and just you really like it's another living being that you need to be present and there for and it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I kind of going off of the Arner Adventures thing, when we moved, we started our blog. And it's funny because I heard your last guest was talking about the same thing that she started a blog just like, whatever. Um and we did the same thing, but we did it because when you do something so drastic like that, people don't understand it. They also want to know. It's almost like a train wreck. Like they want to watch because they think, well, this is surely going to go off the rails. Like this is not working out
Yeah,
for them. But they kept calling and they kept emailing, and some of it was out of concern. I
yeah,
think some of it was was also like they wanted to know how is this going to turn out.
yeah,
And so we started a blog really to avoid people. Like we just were like, no, I'm sick of answering the questions. We're healing. We had also lost our fur baby, three fur babies actually recently, but had recently lost another one. And that was kind of the kicker of everything for us. But um, we started blogging about our process and feeling like we needed to get rid of all that physical and mental weight. And when we did and started talking about grief and loss with pets, that's how our community really started growing because no one, I don't want to say no one because it was a community, but a lot they felt the same thing we felt that no one gets it. Like
yeah,
we felt so alone that no one understands. People couldn't believe we had shut down our business or we sold our client list, but we essentially shut everything down and sold everything because the kicker was our dog had passed away and they just did not understand that. It was just the icing on the cake, but people were just not understanding it. And so that's how Arner Adventures, the blog, grew, was because we were building a community from being authentic about what we were truly going through.
yeah, yeah. I don't think people like I don't think lots of people understand pet loss if they haven't experienced it that way, but like it really is like losing a person, like it's another being that you were connected to and you had a relationship with and who was like in your life. And I think that people don't understand it, because I've heard that as well, where people will almost apologize when their pet dies, like, oh, I'm just feeling really sad because, my dog passed away, I'm sorry, like they'll sort of try to yeah, explain it away. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
that makes sense, that you would feel that way. But yeah. And
Yeah.
it's interesting too, that what you're saying, because I mean, across the board, everybody I talk to who makes big change in their life, it's because they really get pushed to the point where um, they have to, and so if other people don't necessarily understand that, if they haven't like sort of gotten to that point,
Yeah.
um, but it's so brave of you to do that, because you could have just continued on and you could have just stayed doing what you were doing and, you know, like burnt out and just dealt with like the health consequences or whatever, but you actually
That's
like
right.
made a choice to do something about it.
Right. And speaking of the health part of it, we were very unhealthy. I mean, my hair was falling out. Our fingernails were break. I mean, we were break. It was starting to happen, but we didn't understand. Again, not until you start healing and you
Mm,
start understanding what stress can do to you,
mm,
do you realize, oh, like this is physical too. It's not just let's push forward. Let's just keep pushing forward.
yeah.
It wasn't going to work out. It wasn't going to turn out well at all if we'd have stayed where we were.
Yeah. No,
No. It,
no.
and then especially coming somewhere where we're by the water and that, and the water can be like so healing. So that really helped with that 180 swing of getting things back on track.
Yeah, and we do that's the thing is we always talk about, we did sort of change our lifestyle and it was a drastic change like you described, but our intention was we got to get by the ocean. We had read all these things about how much the ocean heals and just being by water, your stress level goes down. And there were many reasons why we did what we did, but we felt like it was worth giving up everything to
Yeah.
make that change. And it was. I mean, we did physically heal and
Hmm.
I think mentally a lot. I mean, I think you don't ever escape all of the stress, mental issues that you might have going on. And it's a constant battle. But yeah, it was a wonderful change to give it all up. And it even sounds weird saying giving it all up because I don't think it was even worth half if it was causing that. But yeah.
And so like now looking back, what were some of the like biggest lessons that you learned? And then what do you feel like were some of the hardest parts of making that shift?
Well, I can say right now the biggest lesson was to say no
Mm,
and how important boundaries are. But also answering your second question, the hardest part for me is keeping the boundaries.
mm,
Even though everything
Me
that we've
too.
been through
Hmm.
and we know better, but it's the hardest thing is holding to our boundaries. Um we have the strong ability to be able to recognize what those boundaries need to be, what they should be, but that's the hardest part is understanding that we have to take care of ourselves because no one else is going to, you know? And again, it goes back to those intentions. I don't think a lot of people have bad intentions,
Mm-mm.
but if you're always the yes person, you're always going to be the yes person and you're always going to be the person they come to.
Yeah, and if we needed to be pushed in the corner to learn to say no and have boundaries, that's not a bad thing because those are two good things to carry
yeah.
through life. You gotta have those things. And I'm a people pleaser, so I it's hard to have those things in place for me.
Yeah.
But now I know to remind myself probably way more so because of what we experienced.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
Yeah, I can identify with that too. I think definitely I would have said I was a people pleaser. And now I think I kind of say it like I think people would think I was nicer before I had cancer. And now I think I'm just better at being direct and clear. And, it's been a practice over these years, but, like Brene Brown says, clear is kind. And
Yep.
I really live by that. I think it's true.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll tell you, we have this letterboard thing that we kind of change out. It would be a word or a phrase, a quote or whatever. And we have on our board since our conversation with you, and it came from you and it has quoted from you, you have a choice. And we see it every time we go into our kitchen, and it's true. Like with boundaries, saying no, you have a choice. And it's one of the biggest things we learned from you is not only do you have a choice to be able to say yes or no, but you have a choice with how you're going to handle things. You have a choice with how, your life decisions. And one of the other biggest lessons I think we've learned is that it's okay to not be quote unquote normal.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
while a lot of people don't get our decisions and don't get our lifestyle, we're not saying it's right for everybody,
Hmm.
It worked for us, and it should be okay to not fit into that quote unquote normal way of living with the 2 cars and the big house and all the crap you need.
And just your basic beliefs. You have a choice. You can believe however you want to be, want to.
Yeah,
And yeah, no matter what influence you get from the outside, So,
yeah,
hmm
Yeah, I think it's really I do think again, like it's really brave to be able to be yourself. And I think it's hard because like you said, um, people have a lot of opinions on it, but also, I mean, most people who really have strong opinions, like you said, are probably going to watch from the sidelines. They're going to follow along. They're going to like, check you, but they're never going to say it to your face. And so
yeah,
I think
yeah,
a lot of times you can just, know it's there and sort of block it out and just continue on being yourself because the more I found this like as I've kind of gone through this because I remember like when I started my Instagram account, I was like terrified to share, like I really
uh-huh.
did feel that way. It was hard. And like as sort of people that I knew came across it, like it hit me hard. And it was hard for me because you've sort of been one person to people for so long and they sort of expect certain things of you. And I don't know if it's wrapped up in the people pleasing or what, but when you start to do something different, I don't know, it was hard for me, I found.
I think it's still something when, on your stories you see who sees it. And every once in a while I'll see where an old client or somebody sees it from what we call kind of our earlier life. And and I do get jarred. Like,
Yeah.
what are they going to think? Like, and then I have to remind myself, who cares? Like it doesn't matter what they think, but we're the same way. I think it's almost like it's just a mindset thing that you have to get past that internal negative thinking or caring so much about what other people think.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like a continuous practice.
Yeah, it's that mental clutter that you have to work through.
Yeah. But like the discomfort of that, is like versus the discomfort of like staying where you are or living the life you were living, like there's no comparison.
No, you're absolutely right. I'd rather have this than that than that
Oh,
previous
yeah.
pain and burnout.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 And so in what ways do you feel living minimally and intentionally has improved your mental health and just like overall well-being?
Oh, well, I'd say for starters, um, I think we're both sort of like taskmasters. And the more things you have around the house, it's more things you have to clean, repair, and straighten.
Yeah.
The less things you have, yeah, less of your attention has to be focused on that, just in your house, in your domain.
And I
Mhm.
think you've said this before, Jerry, that our downsizing and minimalistic life makes the things that matter so much more visible. Like
Hmm.
whether it's experiences, whether it's something that you actually do treasure, something physical, it just makes it so much more meaningful. And we've been described that we live small, but we live minimally and smaller so that we can experience larger and be able to really absorb those experiences and adventures where before, yeah, we were more mindful about the things that didn't matter.
Yeah, yeah, and some of the cool things, maybe sentimental things you like, are no longer packed like in boxes in the back of the attic or up on a garage shelf.
Yeah.
Like we don't have that stuff. they're more in the present. You might run by them day to day, and it's like, that's my cool thing I've had all my life, and it's right there, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's nice to interact with them.
Yeah. And another benefit is we live more sustainably than we did before because the things that we do have matter. We don't want to just keep contributing to, the things in the landfill or whatever. We really if when we do purchase things, which is so weird because I feel like we don't purchase things, but when we do, we are more mindful about, well, how long is that going to stick around? Like, are we going to really use it enough for it to enter our arena, our home, and we're more mindful of where did it come from, and we were never thoughtful of that before. But I think when you reduce the physical and the mental clutter, you make room for caring about things like that.
Yeah.
This is a good case in point here. Instead of these albums being on a shelf, we got
Yeah.
this thing, and they've made a big wall picture,
Oh, that's
old
so
album
cool.
covers.
Yeah.
And so he does a like before it was like, oh my God, he's got all these albums, what in the world? And now we can have them where they are enjoyed as a backdrop, or like we can come in and see
Yeah.
it's like art instead of just being packed up in a box.
And you can change them out once in a while too and make a whole new picture.
Yeah.
My husband would love that actually, because I think, yeah, the same. I mean, in our small space, it's more because I like the clear walls now, but
Yeah.
I mean, we have some things, but yeah, it's nice because I actually think that's a great example because I know just listening to records when they're not sort of on hand, you actually don't listen to them, they just
No.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, absolutely.
hmm
Yeah.
And do you feel now with purchasing, like, what's helped you to purchase less or to like be more mindful about your purchasing?
I'll tell you a couple things. I don't even know what made us decide to do it, but a couple years ago, which was during COVID, which probably made things a little bit easier, was we decided to embark on a no buy year.
Okay.
And we sort of made a list of, we don't like to call them rules. It's almost like guidelines,
Mhm.
that things that we said, okay, we are going to make sure that if we spend money, it's going to be on our basic necessities. Betty. Betty actually wasn't even included in the no buy year. We still did things for her, but we made that rule. Like everyone has kind of their problem area when they do a no buy year. And so we just knew, okay, we're not going to buy clothes. We're going to have to repair them. Or we had a rule where we had to things on like Poshmark or another resell. And if we needed something, we would use those proceeds to get it. So that year, I think, is what got us in a really good routine of not buying. Like we're not even in the no buy year anymore. And yes, we did do some things that we had in our guidelines not to do prior, but that practice, especially the clothes.
hmm
We haven't bought a piece of clothing in it since that beginning of that no buy year.
Oh,
I say not buy. We would use the proceeds like on a resale. Yeah.
yeah.
If we needed something, we learned how to fix things ourselves. We just got in a mindset of slowing down and going, is it is it worth sort of messing up, I guess you could say, in the no buy year to buy that
Yeah.
when, we could just not have it. Like, do we need that? A
Yeah.
case in point was one of our mess ups a month. And we did like a YouTube video every month to hold ourselves accountable and talk
Oh,
about it. And the one month we messed up was it sounds so ridiculous. It was a pool noodle. And we bought the pool noodle from like a cheap little store because we saw where when you have a couch cover, if you put the pool noodle inside the cushions, it keeps the couch cover in
oh
place.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel like we bought it for a good reason, but I'm still down on myself that we messed up
Oh
because we
no.
told
I think
He
that's
wakes up in the middle of the night and says, "Pool noodle." It's oh.
well, that's probably a lesson in itself for you to be easier on yourself.
yeah. But I would say that the no buy year is really what put all of this
Yeah.
into more of a perspective where we have more of a mindset before we buy something.
Yeah. Yeah. I really feel like high structure is helpful. Like I found that for myself too. Like I did project 333. Have you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that really helped because I felt clothes were like the hardest area for me too. And
Yeah.
it just is really nice when you're trying to change something to have, like you said, guidelines, and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this or I'm not going to do this. And then, you'll make mistakes. But yeah, I found like just sitting with what I had for a long time and then really being conscious, okay, I can buy this and replace this or whatever. But it's still now kind of hard. Like I think to myself, okay, I know I need to replace something, but now I'm trying to be so conscious of it that it's almost hard to buy stuff too, because
Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to end up buying something that I don't love. So it's
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
also it's saying no to the things coming in. I mean, I feel like I just said recently, okay, like it's time for decluttering again because
Mhm.
things come in, and whether we, you probably understand, like being in this sort of content creator world, people send you free stuff and it drives me insane. And
Yeah.
then I go, well, I should hold on to it so I can donate it. But then I accumulate it before I go donate it. And then like right now we've got stuff we've got to get out of this house. I got to get this out.
Hmm.
It weighs a lot heavier than it did before our lifestyle change.
Yeah. Yeah, I find those little things really do, because it is something that it becomes a task, like it becomes something that takes up mental space and time and all of those things.
Yeah.
And I'm in the same boat actually. I don't know if it's like coming up to the holidays, but that I need to do the same sort of like a little declutter, but it's the things that start to pile up. Like I have a pair of my daughter's pants here that I need to like repair, and it's like those little small tasks that you just have to make yourself like sit down and like do them. Um
Yeah.
get it out of the way, but that's also
Yeah.
one thing that I was really not great at before, was like letting things pile up, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and then
Yeah.
not always doing it.
And you start understanding that convenience aspect, like as to why people just hit order on Amazon, because it takes less time for them to get their thing on Amazon than fix it.
Mhm.
So it people, yeah, it's we do struggle with that too, and it's an ongoing sort of work in progress to be
Yeah.
able to say no. I'm going to fix that. I'm going to make the time to fix it rather than just order something new.
Yeah, and if you don't have the skills, like if it's something that's like a little bit hard, it's often cheaper to replace it than it is to get it repaired by somebody, which is
Yeah,
unfortunate too.
that's
Because
true.
it makes it, of course, like people just end up tossing it aside.
Yeah. Although I will say YouTube is a beautiful thing, that there's a lot of DIY things on YouTube that we've learned that we didn't know
Yeah.
we would know,
Oh
you know?
yeah.
Yeah, it's true. You can learn anything. I actually am trying to practice singing bowls like for my students, because we're doing meditation, but it's actually trickier than I thought it was going to be.
Uh,
But you can learn anything on YouTube. It's such a great resource.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a lovely thing to learn.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's harder than it looks. It's a lot harder than it looks. I think it just takes practice.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
YouTube is like the DIYer's Bible though. It's
Mhm.
just it's yeah, like you said, anything you want, you can learn it on
yeah,
there.
yeah,
Hmm.
I'm knitting my daughter a frog for Christmas, because she likes little animals, and
Oh.
um, yeah, like every other stitch I don't know how to do. Like stop and start. But it's true, if you want to learn anything, if you just
Yeah,
sit down with YouTube,
yeah,
which is amazing. That's
yeah,
amazing.
Mhm.
totally.
And what about habits and routines? Do you have anything that you do routinely that really impacts your life in a positive way, or you like really hold on to like help with your mental wellness?
I think we're both pretty routine oriented and regimented. We like ritual kind of processes, like
We're both very ritualistic with our mornings.
yeah,
Like,
mornings especially. Yeah. Hmm.
whether I am traveling, visiting my parents, doing something fun, whatever, since we made our lifestyle change, we started getting outside more. I have to start my day with a walk. And I can tell I mentally struggle if I don't have that. And a lot of it is moving first thing in the day. The second part of it is
especially mainly is Betty White, our dog, that's her time, and she needs it, and she rides in a stroller because she has really bad arthritis, but that allows us to be able to get moving, and she looks forward to it. So for me, it's so fulfilling to be able to have that time with her. And I know, Jerry, you journal and have that in your mornings.
Yeah, we both, that's specifically, we both,
Hmm.
that's our thing there. There's other things, but that's like every day for both of us.
Yeah, the way we start our day definitely has a huge effect on us mentally and physically. So we have to sort of have those routines and rituals in place.
Yeah. That's great. I think that's really good advice for people because I agree. Like I think the way that you start your day is the way that it continues, and
Yeah.
probably everybody can identify with that. If you've had a day that, oh, you didn't wake up to your alarm or something and it was rushed and chaotic and you forgot this and you forgot that and it just sort of started the day off wrong. Sometimes you don't recoup from that. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
be purposeful in the way you begin the day, I imagine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll say we had a guest on our podcast, Kevin Berthia, and it's resonated with me ever since. But he I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he is a speaker now, and he helps people with I don't know, anti suicide, like mental health.
Mhm.
He is known for I think it was like the San Francisco Chronicle or the Post or something took a picture of him as the police were negotiating with him to not jump off the Golden Gate Bridge. And it was so impactful to so many people. And the way he describes it is that that wasn't even his only time that he tried it. That was the one that resonated with people.
And he tried it again after that
He tried it
too.
again after, but
Mhm.
one of the things he says is that the moment his eyes open in the morning, and I think about it every time since he said it, when his eyes open in the morning, the first thing he says is, "I'm so grateful that my eyes just opened and that I'm awake." And so it's sort of that gratitude first thing, like not just going with the motions of, "Oh God, the alarm," or Betty's whining for food or whatever. I do since then think about it and go, if he can recognize that, and then we surely can do that too. So I think a gratitude practice first thing is really important.
Yeah, and he's somebody that seems to have really gotten the point that he has to have that
Yeah.
gratitude and that perspective shift or change whenever he needs it,
Yeah.
to keep going.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, it's nice to actually, hear these different practices and then implement them before you actually need them, and
Yeah.
Right.
so many
It's
of us
like preventative maintenance.
yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Because a lot
Mhm.
of us go to something, we're like, "Oh, man, I'm, like, really struggling, so I need something." But if you actually, gratitude and meditation are 2 of my big ones, and, the gratitude thing, I also think you really have to practice it. Like, I think it's immediately helpful, but I also think you really have to practice it to, like, get, like, a deeper sense of it and to really feel it in a really
Yeah.
deep way. Um, and I think that that's such a beautiful way to start the day is just to really
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
there's this website, it's called gratefulness.org, and it's brother David Steindl Rast. He has a TED talk on gratitude actually, and he's a monk, and so his whole work is about gratitude, and he has the organization put together this really beautiful video. I think it's 5 minutes long or less, and it's called A Grateful Day. And he not only has this beautiful speaking voice, and there's like all the visuals, it's just like so beautiful to watch. But one of the
Oh,
things he says in there is, yeah, like open your eyes and be amazed that you have eyes to open.
oh,
And just I think about that a lot.
yeah.
It's hard to really deeply internalize, I guess, when you haven't had an experience that you've almost lost it, or you're almost without it. But I think the more you practice, the more you can really feel,
Absolutely. I remember just in a really low point of like our life that I had a therapist who was telling me, to put in forth a gratitude practice. And I was just like, I can't even, like, how can I even find anything? And she helped me through it. Well, some days it's going to be that you're breathing. And
Mhm.
some days it's going to be, it's not raining. Like, she's like, you don't have to put forth that much effort to be able to just be grateful for the things that seem so small, but are so big and impactful.
Yeah. It's like training your brain, like changing the pathways, because we're
Yeah.
all leaning to that negative. Like, we always remember the negative. It's the way we're wired. And you just have to say, like, and I talk about this with my daughter a lot. Like, I practice this with her because I want her to sort of, practice thinking this way. And I've noticed she does it, because it's interesting. I came home yesterday and my husband kind of was grumbling about a few things, and he got a ride home from somewhere, and it took a long time because of the traffic. And then my daughter said, but what was really nice is that we got to spend extra time with those people in the car. And I was so happy to hear her say that, because I think she's got it. And
That means you're doing a great job, Sarah. You're doing a great job.
I was so proud of her. I'm like, you got it. That's such a great way to look at that situation. So I think it
Yes.
takes practice to make ourselves think of what's good about something that's not so good.
Yeah.
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 Neat how kids can change your perspective sometimes like that too.
Oh,
You
Yeah.
know, yeah.
yeah, they just like purely spit it out the way it is.
Yeah.
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 Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what do you think, like, some of the characteristics or skills that you have that have helped you navigate this big change? Like, what do you think really helped you? Maybe, I mean, you talked about the before, but once you moved and you're in this new space, like, how did you acclimatize to it? How did you roll through this change?
For me, I would say it was writing in the blog
Mhm.
and being able for the first time in my life to actually be authentic, because I I don't even think I realized how inauthentic I was being until we started the blog and we started sort of people responding who did get it, that I was like, oh, okay, like being my true self is okay. And I don't have to be so exhausted of being this other person that I didn't even know. I mean, so I think that blog and I don't want to say that it was the fact that people were responding, because I don't want it to be where I only felt okay because people were responding. It wasn't that. It was more like I was just for the first time being authentic. And I think that anything that we do now, whether it's the blog, the podcast, social media, which I really is the bane of my existence, but it is what it is. I think that the authentic part, and that's so thrown around, that word, but for me, I really just, I don't wanna even say I don't care what people think anymore, but I care less
Yeah.
about what people think about our lifestyle, and that is, for me, what helps me move forward. I'll give you an example. There's a sort of a brunch holiday party thing coming up,
Mhm.
and they're doing what are the things called where you bring a gift, like a gift exchange thing?
Oh, yeah, like Secret Santa kind of thing.
Yeah, and I said, "I'll come, but I'm not doing that." I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna contribute to that, and I mean, they think it's super weird, and I don't care. I'm like, "Well, just don't put me in it. Like, you guys just have it? Well, aren't you gonna" this is what they said, "Aren't you gonna feel weird?" I said, "No, you might feel weird, but I'm not gonna
Yeah.
feel weird
Yeah. That's so
because I'm just not going to keep faking it. I'm just not gonna do it anymore." So that's my answer to that, is the authenticity.
Well, I just want to back her up by saying I think writing and journaling helped me a lot too. It makes your thoughts that are swimming around in your head kind of tangible, and you can step back and look at them and clears your head a little bit. So that I'd say that was number one for me too. I had probably dabbled in it, but got more consistent with it after we did all that
Yeah,
change.
yeah,
Hmm.
Yeah, such a great way to, like, process things, like,
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah,
like, work through it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love that Secret Santa. That's so great because I feel like the holidays is one of the hardest times to like step out of that stuff because you
Mm-hmm.
feel
Mhm.
this like obligation of participating. And yeah,
Yeah.
how great is it that you can feel so strong in yourself that you're like, nope, I'm
Mhm.
good.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is even annoying. Like I'm like, I'm going. It's a group of people who certainly don't need anything,
Yeah,
and why are we doing this? Like, it just seems so ridiculous now that you when you live a different lifestyle, you think a different way. It's just so ridiculous. But that's the way I look at it. It's ridiculous.
no, it's. I was in a store last night because I needed to pick up something for work, and I was walking past all these Christmas crackers, and like I don't know if that's ever a thing that you've done, but it's a thing. It was a thing in my family. Like we always did Christmas crackers. And I know
Uh-huh.
that at like one of my family Christmases, so I know I'll experience it, but I was like, "Oh, that might be fun." And then I was looking at it, and then I was, looking at what's in them, and I had that thought where it was like, "Oh, I like this idea, but it's just going to be garbage." And
Yeah.
like it's a 1 second thing and then it's gone. So I left it.
Yeah.
But, it's, yeah, getting out of those sort of things that are like traditions or a part of a group are harder.
Yeah, well, it's like I tell my mom. I mean, and we've sort of trained our family to understand it now that we just don't do the gift stuff, but we do things together. Like my mom really likes us to make this, cake together every year, and it's fun, and we make it homemade, and it's like a new tradition that we've set instead of let's open all these fancy things and it's over in just a few seconds of
Yeah.
having all this stuff. So yeah, the experiences mean so much more.
Yeah. Yeah. And with adults, I think like you said, everybody has everything, it's,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't need to do it. And there is like the experiences are so much better too.
Yeah. Or go get together and go volunteer somewhere that they don't have as much, or, make
Yeah.
something better together. Or go to an animal shelter and spend some time volunteering. They certainly need it. So
Mm.
there's so many things that you can experience and then together and then feel good after because you were making a difference.
Yeah. That's so nice. And
Yeah.
any advice that you would give someone who's considering a drastic change like this?
Well, for me, I always say go with your gut, and if it's for you and you feel like you want to do it, do it. I think a lot of people would say, well, just take a beat, make sure that you're
Yeah.
you're planning. I'm a very impulsive person, and I think that has worked to my advantage in my life,
Yeah.
especially in this because I think Jerry. Well, I know Jerry is not, and I remember him being a little uneasy, and so that was like the dynamic of this. And I'll say sometimes, "Man, you don't regret it, do you?" And he's, "Oh my gosh,
Oh, no, I
no,
don't. No, I mean,
yeah."
it all worked out for the best. That's for sure.
I do think that you have to get past caring what other people think about your journey and take that journey if you know in your gut that that is what's going to be best for you, as long as you're not harming anybody or anything, and you feel like it's what is going to fulfill you. I just think you just have to do it. I mean, it's scary, as fulfilling and as exciting as it also was. It was very scary, but what's scarier is the end result of what would have happened, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, and I think that's the number one is just don't be conscientious about what other people think and pack an extra pair of underwear, Other than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so hard. I know it's so hard not to care what other people think, but I love that intuition thing too because I know I'm kind of trying to practice that even more. Like sometimes even when I'm driving, like, okay, which way am I going to go home? Like just trying to like practice
Yeah.
it because it's we don't always tap into it, but I think it's really really important. Um
Yeah.
yeah, and
I
it
think
helps.
it served us well, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it helps you get past the fear of things too when you like can feel, okay, I feel sure about this or I feel more certain. Yeah.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
agree.
Hmm.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing your story and being here, because I know that it will be super inspiring to others. And, like, you've learned so much through this whole process. And it's nice that you can share it to support other people in the same.
Well, thank you for the beautiful conversation and the ability to even, we love when we can talk about this with other people who sort of,
Yeah.
understand or even want to entertain it. So we really appreciate it. And we're happy to talk to anyone about this if they're thinking about making that change. I mean, we love all things about doing something better for yourself, for your mental health, physical health. It's yeah. I mean, that's what you've got to take care of you. So
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
and
it's
we knew that we really liked the rhythm of the conversation with you last time, so it was nice to be able to repeat that.
yeah.
Hmm.
so much. I felt the same. Yeah. And I think it's, like you were saying, it's like pleasing others or people aren't going to understand, but that there are people out there that you can connect with that do understand, because they've done, stepped out of their comfort and
Yeah.
gone,
Hmm.
because it matters to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You're so welcome.
If this episode resonated with you, or if you know of someone who would benefit from what we talked about, please share it with a friend.
It's a great way of supporting the podcast, and we really appreciate it.
Another way of supporting the pod is by leaving us a 5-star review or rating on the platform you are listening to us on.
And go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That also supports us. You can always find us, the show notes, and sponsors who support the podcast at arneradventures.com.
And until next time, enjoy the journey you're on. We're wishing you lots of adventures.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.